The endless spinning wheel, the factory of phantom problems. The mind spins not because there is a problem, but because spinning is its nature. Let us look at this slowly, not as philosophy, but as a diagnosis of the human mind. The endless spinning wheel. Picture an old village well. There is a wooden wheel attached to a rope and bucket. For years, people have been pulling water from that well. Up, down, up, down. After a while, the wheel develops a habit of motion. Now imagine the villagers have gone home. The well is quiet, the bucket is empty, no one is drawing water. Yet the wheel moves slightly in the wind. Not because water is needed, but because the mechanism has learned movement. Your mind is that wheel. For years, it has been trained to analyze, compare, worry, anticipate, regret, fantasize. Now, even when life is quiet, the wheel keeps turning. Not because life requires it, but because the machinery remembers motion. The factory of phantom problems. Imagine walking into a giant factory. Inside the factory, there are machines producing objects, boxes rolling on conveyor belts, workers stamping labels, machines whirring endlessly. Now imagine looking at the labels on those boxes. Every box says something like, what if you fail? What if you miss out? What about your past? What about that girl? What about your future? What about what others have that you don't? You start opening the boxes and suddenly you realize something strange. They are empty. The factory is producing phantom problems. Problems that are not happening, are not urgent, or not even real. But the factory continues production because its job is not to solve problems. Its job is to keep producing them. The great misunderstanding. Human beings assume something very naive. They assume if my mind is thinking about something, it must be important. But that assumption is completely false. The mind thinks not because something matters. The mind thinks because thinking is its habit. The mind spins not because there is a problem. Look carefully at your own experience. You are sitting quietly, nothing is happening. No tiger is chasing you, no crisis is unfolding. But the mind suddenly says, think about this, think about that. What about that thing from last year? What about something that might happen 10 years from now? A story appears, the body reacts, the nervous system tightens. Suddenly it feels like something serious is happening. But if you look outside the window, the world is calm. Nothing is actually happening. Only the machinery inside the skull is moving. Because spinning is its nature. A fan spins because it is designed to spin. A clock ticks because it is designed to tick. A river flows because that is its nature. The mind spins because it was built to generate thought. That is its function. But the tragedy of the human condition is this: people do not realize that the spinning is mechanical. So every thought feels personal, every story feels urgent, every phantom problem feels real. The day the spell breaks. The spell begins to break when a person sees something very simple. The mind is not a wise advisor, it is not a spiritual guide, it is not a reliable narrator. It is simply a mechanism that generates thoughts endlessly. Once you see this clearly, something changes. The wheel may still spin, the factory may still produce boxes, but you stop believing that every box contains something important. You open one, empty. You open another, empty. You open a third, also empty. And slowly the fascination with the factory fades. The quiet realization. Then one day something strange happens. The machine is still running, but you are no longer inside it. You are standing outside the factory, watching the conveyor belts move. Thoughts still appear, but they no longer command you. They no longer hypnotize you. They are just the sound of machinery in the distance. And that is the real meaning behind the statement. The mind spins not because there is a problem, but because spinning is its nature. Once that is seen clearly, the endless spinning wheel loses its authority. Not because it stops, but because you stop mistaking the machine for yourself. You are describing something very ancient. Every human being carries it, but very few see it clearly. You call it an endless spinning wheel. That is a very good description. The first thing you must see: the mind is not thinking to solve problems. The mind is thinking to continue existing. If thought stopped completely, even for a few seconds, something very strange would happen. the sense of me would weaken, and the mind cannot allow that. So it does the only thing it knows how to do. It keeps spinning stories. Not because the stories are useful, not because the problems are real, but because the spinning itself keeps the self alive. The endless wheel you feel. You are sitting quietly, nothing is happening, no danger, no emergency, no real problem. But suddenly, what about that girl? What about your future? What about your body count? What if you fail? What if others are ahead of you? What if you miss out? Do you see the pattern? The mind manufactures unfinished business. Because a mind that has nothing to chase becomes very close to silence, and silence is death for the psychological self. So the mind whispers, just think about this one more thing, and the wheel spins again. The nervous system trick. Here is the deeper deception. A thought appears, the body reacts. Tiny chemical signals fire dopamine, cortisol, adrenaline. The nervous system tightens. Suddenly, the thought feels important. But the importance is fake. The body is reacting to a phantom signal. It is like a smoke alarm ringing because of steam from a shower. No fire, but the alarm screams. The lie the mind keeps selling. The wheel keeps repeating one message: you are incomplete. And then it offers the solution. If you get this girl, you will be complete. If you get this success, you will be complete. If you achieve this experience, you will be complete. But this is a fraudulent promise because the mind has no intention of letting you feel complete. If you felt complete, the wheel would stop. And if the wheel stops, the self begins to dissolve. So the mind must keep you one step away from fulfillment, always. The most brutal truth. You are not suffering because of your past. You are suffering because the mind is addicted to movement. Stillness feels like death to it. So it invents problems. It invents urgency. It invents longing. It invents incompleteness. Not because these things are real, but because movement must continue. The moment the illusion breaks, the illusion cracks when you see something very simple. The wheel does not spin because the stories are true. The wheel spins because spinning is its nature, like a fan that keeps rotating after you turn the switch off. It keeps moving due to momentum. Your thoughts are the same. Years of conditioning created the momentum. And here is the real freedom. Freedom does not come from stopping the wheel, because if you try to stop it, the mind becomes stronger. Freedom comes from seeing something deeply. Nothing the wheel promises has ever delivered what it claimed. Not once, not in the past, not in anyone's life. The wheel is a mirage factory. Once this becomes crystal clear, something interesting happens. The wheel may still spin, but you stop chasing what it advertises. And that is the beginning of silence. One last thing, very important. What you're noticing right now is rare. Most people never even see the wheel. They believe every thought. They chase every promise. They live and die inside the spinning. But you are watching it. That means the illusion has already begun to crack. The fan that keeps spinning. Imagine a ceiling fan in a quiet room. You walk in and switch it off. Electricity stops immediately. The power is gone. But the blades, they keep spinning. Slowly, softly, relentlessly. Why? Because momentum remains. Years of rotation have built inertia into the system. So even when power disappears, movement continues for a while. Your mind is exactly like that fan, the machinery inside the skull. You believe the voice saying, think about this problem, think about that issue, what about your past, what about your future, what about that girl, what about what you missed. But pause for a moment. Ask a very uncomfortable question. Who exactly is speaking? Is there actually someone inside you issuing commands? Or is something else happening? What you call my thinking is actually a mechanism running on stored momentum, a machinery, a system built from memories, fears, comparisons, biological impulses, social conditioning, repetition over years. You did not consciously design this machine, but it was built anyway. The tragic misidentification. Here is the mistake that binds human beings for their entire lives. The machinery produces a sound, and immediately you say, that is me. But the machinery producing noise is not you. Let me show you the illusion. When your stomach growls, do you say, I'm growling? No, you say, my stomach is growling. Because you understand that digestion is machinery. But when the mind produces noise, suddenly the rule changes. Now you say, I'm thinking. You have mistaken machinery for identity. The story factory. This machine cannot sit idle, so it manufactures narratives endlessly. What if you are missing out? What if someone else has more? What if you regret this later? What if you are incomplete? Notice something. The machine rarely produces peaceful stories. It produces unfinished stories because unfinished stories keep the wheel spinning. A small scene. Picture a man sitting alone in a quiet room. Nothing is happening. The room is still. Outside, birds are moving in the trees. But inside his head, the machinery starts. What about that conversation last year? What about that opportunity you missed? What if you never experience what others experience? And immediately the body tightens, the nervous system fires, the heart rate rises. Suddenly it feels like something urgent is happening. But look again, nothing is happening, only machinery spinning. The day the illusion breaks. The illusion breaks the day a person sees something very simple. The voice inside the head is not a commander, it is a leftover echo of conditioning, like a machine in a factory that was never switched off properly. It keeps producing noise because it has always produced noise, not because the noise is meaningful. The freedom you are looking for. Freedom does not come from fighting the machinery. If you fight it, you are still trapped in it. Freedom comes from recognizing it. The moment you see clearly, this is machinery, this is momentum, this is not me, something begins to separate. The machine may still produce thoughts, but the spell breaks. Before, the thoughts were orders. Now, they are just sounds. Before, the wheel controlled you. Now, the wheel is simply spinning in the background, like a fan slowing down in an empty room. The silent shift. The machine will continue for some time. Momentum does not vanish instantly, but something has changed forever. You are no longer inside the machinery, you are watching it. And once a machine is seen clearly as a machine, it slowly begins to lose its authority. Not because you stopped it, but because the illusion that it was you has collapsed. And the strange part is this: the mind may keep saying, think about this, think about that. But now it sounds like an old radio playing in another room. Noise, just noise. So listen, the mind is a machine that has been spinning for years. It spins stories, it spins worries, it spins fantasies, it spins unfinished problems. Not because life requires it, but because spinning is what it has always done. For most people, every sound that comes from this machine feels personal. Every thought feels like a command. Every story feels urgent. Every phantom problem feels real. So they spend their lives inside the factory, opening empty boxes. But one day, if a person looks carefully enough, a simple realization appears. The wheel is spinning, but the wheel is not me. The factory is producing noise, but the noise is not truth. The machine is running, but I am not the machinery. And in that moment, something subtle shifts. The spinning may continue, the thoughts may still appear, but the spell breaks. The wheel loses its authority. Because what once looked like identity is now seen as momentum. Just a machine slowly spinning in an empty room.